Hey guys, how's it going? This is False Bulls 123, and this is day 2 of kind of my moving experience. Yesterday, I did some errands. I went and talked to my old academic advisor. She gave me some references to, where to start applying to in Medford. Called my mom, called my aunt, figured out lodging there. And pretty much the only thing I have to figure out now do today is, talk to my oh, what's her name? No, what's her name, but what's her position? I guess HR personnel, like whatever you call it, and see what I have to do to actually get transferred. So I thought that, just wanted to update you, let you know it's gonna be okay, but I thought that, packing, it's a large process. You have to go through a lot of things. And one of the things I want to start focusing on now, before start taking down my decorations and doing everything else, is just going through a lot of my papers type stuff, seeing what I need, what I can get rid of, and what I need to send back home before me. So I went down to the post office yesterday. I looked at the flat rate boxes, and once I figure out what I want to separate the wheat from the chaff, I'll grab a couple of those and then figure out how much I can afford to send. Besides that, if you guys have any suggestions for shipping items, especially large things like paintings, that would be really wonderful to know about. So guys, put your packing and moving tips down below in the comments, and let's get started with the video. My box of binders. This is basically where I keep all of my binders obviously, but all of my notebooks, all of my stationery, basically everything that I need to write or keep a record of. Here is a box for putting away, all the things I'm not going to take with me, and I'll have it displayed visually on my bed here. So, starting first is, let's see, this is a picture of, what was it, Lady Justice from an old comic that I used to draw in high school, followed by my sketchbook, actually. Not really sure what this was doing in here. I probably just shoved it on top just for fun. Just to, move things out, but it's not the best sketching, to be honest, and I do a lot of other note-taking with it. Let's see. One thing of interest is this is my D&D map that I made for my campaign. And I have a few other types of, what's it called, yeah. I definitely have a few other forms of design here. But, that's definitely something I'm keeping, followed by a notebook of some sort. So, looks like it's pretty empty, and I can definitely use the hat. You would not believe how much I actually need, blank notebooks for. It gets ridiculous. Then this notebook, I don't remember what exactly I used it for. Looks like I was using it for D&D, and then a few other things in here, actually. Let me see. So, looks like I definitely had a lot of writing, and these are my OLLC notes. So these were notes that I was taking to learn how to get a organ liquor commission, something like that. Basically, this would be my license that allows me to serve and prepare alcohol. So I actually counted the pages once. This is about a good 40 pages of notes. But then, let's see, this has to do with my orientation. Yeah, so this was all orientation notes that I took for Walmart. You can see that the classes got a little bit dull. So there's a lot of doodles in here. And yeah, so all these notes relate to the pathways, to pretty much everything else that we have here. And there's still, yeah. Oh, I forgot. I actually, at the end of this notebook, I had notes on the original, on the first time module. So this is the first time I wrote out the song Church of Amantheroth. And you might have, now if you've been on my Bandcamp, you might have heard it. If not, totally go check it out. It's an original song that I made for my D&D campaign. Followed up is, oh, I've actually been looking for this. This is my orientation packet that I got when I first joined Walmart. I actually want to look into that because there's a few things I need to read up on. This is, let's see, a envelope with my address and full name on it. Not going to show you that. Followed by a business card. I actually collect those, so one of these, oh, that's actually coming up, I see. Then here's some loose papers I found. So this is a character sheet for one of the NPCs in my game. Another character sheet for one of the NPCs in my game. This is a, let's see, printed map of the town in Odyssey. So Odyssey does have a large amount of additional content that I made for it, just because it's been in production for so long that I've had time to polish it. Then these are some, let's see, typewritten notes for the Turbidus storyline. So that's another module, but those, I was basically just brainstorming for those ones. And this is stationery. I know, I'm a weirdo that owns stationery. You can judge me later. So this is actually, really excitingly, this is my business card collection. And I'll have to do a full video on this later once I actually get all my business cards together. But this is the one I did in Coos Bay, and as you can tell, it's coming along decently. Yeah, because it's pretty much filled up. But I also have a larger one at home, which is my Medford collection. And it's about 500 cards, and it's a lot bigger than this one, actually. Followed up is, let's see, this is a map to another dungeon from the Odyssey one. And this is a third map that I did. So there was 3 maps that I drew. Actually 4, but one is more for me than for the other ones. This was a flowchart that, oh, yeah, it's just a side. This was a flowchart that I was doing for the Netflix show Bandersnatch. If you haven't seen it, it's a, like, choose-your-own-adventure type movie, which is super cool. And here you see another one of my many, many notebooks that I own. So I'm just going to flip through it, let you, like, see bits and pieces, just because, you know, there's a lot here to unpack, and most of this is me doing all sorts of, like, random things in it. So here are some genealogy notes. Here is, and I was actually trying to figure out the floor plan for Turbidus. So here is a accurate, like, map of the entire, let's see, module. And trust me, this looks really complicated. It is a little complicated, but this is just for me to, like, you know, be able to, like, figure out where they are in this place, and then they don't need to figure it out because they can draw their own map. It's pretty self-explanatory once you actually get into the system. And then followed by just other random, like, code-breaking things. I use a lot of this to, like, figure out codes. I use a lot of this to, like, plan things geographically, there we go. And so, basically you write down a lot of things, and I'm actually filled up with that book. Oh, looks like this is my writing notebook, and if you guys would like me to, like, you know, read any of these, totally, I would love to do that. I love reading my writing, and I definitely, like, put a lot of emphasis on it. So, you know, in the comments, tell me if any of these stories sound interesting or not, and, you know, thanks for listening about that type of thing. So, let's see, this is, oh yeah, so this is a short story I wrote, and it's just about a woman reading a tarot deck, having a tarot card reading. This is, let's see, these were notes on a comic book page I was doing in high school. So these are the original ones. Followed by, okay, this was some I mean, it's not really fan fiction if I'm the person that created. This is a creative writing piece that I did in the universe of the Odyssey module. So this actually talked about some of the deeper lore to it. Let's see, this is another one that I made just as a prompt to a different module idea that I had. So basically they're inviting them to a party, And this is actually, let's see, another... I have a lot of writing pieces related to D&D just because I tend to like to write about that type of thing. This one was based off of my previous D&D character. If you remember my unboxing video, this would be written about Tig the Bard. So this was my last one that I did. This is like the first printed chapter of my novel. And so I actually really love this story, and it is a bit purple prose, to be honest, but I wanted it to be a sort of like gothic type of modern gothic type storyline, so a lot of like the way it's written is kind of the point. The sun shone on the wilting rose bushes and through the bay window. Not ridiculed by her dulled and assaulted senses, the kitchen seemed a kind and sunny place if dull in execution. It seemed silly, perched on a rickety stool on the granite island, that a leaky faucet had put her at such an ease. A phase resurfaced through the top of her head, subliminal spaces. It was so different with the new setting, the feelings and thoughts that came with it, all wrapped up in the surrealism of night. The slightest provocation would be found unsettling. A magic realism tinged with horror. She didn't know anything about pipes, vacuums, suction, magic. She would leave it to the professionals. She stared down at the pad she was writing on, reading. And then it just keeps going. Let's see. So chapter 2 was basically an introduction to a lot of side characters. You basically meet a few local people. And I'm trying to think if there's anything that actually happens. No, I used to meet a few characters, and she does some shopping. I have never actually finished much more than... I was always on the... I think I was on the 3rd chapter before I finished writing, but... honestly, it's definitely a storyline that I'd love to get back into one of these days. Let's see. So, these are a bunch of poems that I wrote when I was... I know, I was seeing this girl, and honestly, it was very casual, and honestly, I was way too much into it. She probably didn't even, like me to begin with, and this is mostly just how I, vented all the frustration that I was feeling with a lot of the really emo poems. Oh yeah, if you want to read any of this cringe, I will post a link to my WritersCafe account, which literally is the most random thing that I've ever published on. I just needed a place to, post my writings like this that, they were emotional, but they weren't, really fitting into the whole DeviantArt. Because I don't want to post things like these poems in DeviantArt. They're really personal, they're very emotional. I don't think I've ever actually posted this one. This one's called You. And this one's actually about a different person I was writing about, but that's, neither here nor there. This one's called Paradise, and it's also a pretty decent poem, and I like it, but yeah, if you guys want me to read out any of these, poems I mentioned, any of the stories I mentioned, let me know, or if you're interested in what the stories were about, I'll be happy to talk about them. So this was another comic book idea that I had, and this was basically, I got a lot of it of the Bright Sessions. There's this podcast I used to listen to it, so I'm just like, I want to make something X-Men-y. So this one is about a woman named, now her name is Monica in this story, but in later, when I've been rewriting this, I've changed it to Martha, so this is really, really early. Basically, she has the ability to teleport anywhere in the world, but something happens during a jump, and she winds up on the astral plane. And so, and this is a rewriting of it, actually, so a lot of stuff happens in there, and that's combining quite a few different storylines in that universe. This was a play that I was writing called I'm Not Going to Write You a Love Song, and it is filthy cringe, and I will not read it. I mean, if you want me to read it, I will, because it's funny and great, but it's also super cringe. And this is something you just don't really need to know about. That is a bit more personal of a writing, and that would definitely violate my YouTube monetization, which I don't have, but it would violate it. This is my next binder, and I just got some pie Let's see, food recipes. And I'm guessing that most of these clippings are, yep, indeed, pie. There's one thing I love, it is pie, and if there's one thing I have a lot of, it is recipe clippings of recipes. At home, my Aunt Crystal, she gave me a huge, like, grocery sack filled with, like, recipe clippings, and I have added to it. So at home somewhere, I just have a giant lumpy sack filled with paper like that. This looks to be, yep, this is my D&D binder. So I keep a lot of different, I'm pretty sure I keep mine here, but I also keep a lot of different character sheets. So this is Take Albany. Let's see, and that's my character sheet for that. This was for I think this was Lily's, actually. Yeah, she just never wrote down her name on here. And I still have that. This was Donnie. So this was all from our last D&D campaign. I wasn't the DM then, that was a different guy. And so we all just had different characters. And it was actually a sci-fi setting. It was pretty fun, but it also was very slow and dragged its feet a little bit. Let's see, this was, yeah, I made this one actually for Liesel, who's a friend of mine, but I think eventually Kayla started playing this one. So Kayla's Donnie's girlfriend, and she's, like, super awesome. Oh yeah, these were actually also drawn by her. Oh. Well, see, now I'm definitely getting demonetized. Dang nabbit. And, oh yeah, Kayla's obsessed with cows, so just some drawings from my friend. She's pretty cool. She was the same person that sent me that postcard from the unboxing videos. So, see, it all ties together. Memories on memories. And then this end is just, yeah. Looks to just be empty, like, character sheets. So coming up is some definitely fun binders that I love, is my culinary ones. So I'm just going to flip through these real quick because there's a lot to unpack here. But basically, these are all of the handouts that I got in culinary class. So these pages you're seeing here, they look like they were, like, printed and handed to us. Nah, honey, that you'd be absolutely wrong. All of these, this entire binder was typed out by hand, and then I printed it. Every single day, I would literally have to go home, go through my notes. These I got handouts, obviously, because they're final notes. Every single one of these, I'd have to go in my book, type these out, put it on a thumb drive, run all the way over to the library before it closed, and then print them out for the next day. And that's what I did for first quarter. I spent so much money on printed paper. But in the back, I actually have a few recipes that I had before. So chicken parmesan, always an excellent dish. Spaghetti carbonara, my favorite. And what is back here? Looks like this was my original ServeSafe notification. And so that's actually pretty cool. ServeSafe is the essentially highest form of, it's like getting a food handler's card, but it's much more, I'm trying to think how to describe it. It's a lot harder to do. It's a lot higher of a certification. So I didn't pass the first year, but the second year that I did, when I redid it the second year, I passed 80%, and that was a managerial one, not a basic food handler's. So this was a lot of notes that we took. This is all from baking mostly, followed by our international segment. So this is all quarter two, and basically we did a lot of baking, we did a lot of other items. And if you want to hear like some stories from like, my culinary days, what my favorite thing to cook was during that time, like, let's get together, let's go through it, and we'll totally figure it out. This is the last binder, and I had to double check just because I thought I might have a quarter three one, but I'm pretty sure that I put the last two quarters in by itself because we didn't have as many handouts. This was a essay that I wrote for, wow, I wrote a lot more than I realized. This was an essay that I wrote for my college class for writing, and it was so fucking easy. like, you literally just talk about, like, this just talked a lot about my, like, how I wanted to join culinary, like, what made me decide to do it, and I thought it was a pretty easy thing. I love culinary. This was a menu that we made for our class. This was our menu assignment. And so this just had and so obviously there's a lot of suggestions here, but I mean, hey, if you don't get feedback, there's no way you can improve. And so, I swore that I would have trying to think, because I had a much better sketch of the kitchen, but this was a real basic one that I had made. So we also had, for the class, we also had to do a restaurant design project, followed by like, there was a lot of projects that we had to do. This was our final, which was our Bella La Gigi, like, diner. And we did all cold food. So we did chilled spinach and avocado soup, which, this is amazing. And we did a lot of other things during that time period. So third quarter was a la carte. So we did a lot of essentially food service. We would have every single week we would have a different event where people would come to eat, and we could invite our friends and family. So we did a lot of things like that. The baking students did a patisserie, which is when they served which is essentially what's it called? Bake sale? Something like that. So they would have croissants, they would have tiramisu, they would have all of these fantastic, like, things. And they would sell those every single week, and I would ask them questions, like, I'd be a good, like, person. He's a little fun little doodle in the corner as a winged snake. And so the fourth quarter was charcuterie and garde manger. So basically, that's all about cold foods. It's all about preservation. In the back here are a lot of other notes from, like, different portions from the different, like, side classes we took during the class. Because we had a cooking block where we actually made the food, and we also had lecture hours, which would have all of the, like, additional information. Food and beverage, menu planning, restaurant design, that type of thing. And so here's just some more information about that, and basically that's pretty much the end of it. All these in the back were just extra recipes left over, and this is essentially, along with those notebooks I showed you from my last video, is the entirety of my culinary handouts. This is 2 years of college boiled down to a couple binders. These are all genealogy notes before I actually got my genealogy binder. I started doing genealogy this year just as a way of kind of getting back into, like, spending time with my family, talking to people, and if you guys would like to know more about, like, my genealogy, about my family history, or if you just, like, want to know some of my tips and tricks about it, like, let me know in the contents if you'd be interested in that. Genealogy is actually a lot of fun. It's kind of like researching stuff, but it's all about, it's personal. It's your family's history, and so it makes it a lot more of an enjoyable thing to find out about. I found out a lot of can't talk today. I found out a lot about my family that I didn't know about. I found out about a lot of, like, different people, good and bad, weird things that happen, tragedies, and I think that really, like, helps embellish you as a person. It helps you show that no matter where you are in your life, you've had a lot of great people that have come before, and you've had a lot of stinkers. So whatever you do in life, it's up to you. You're just one more branch in the tree. And that gives you the freedom to be whatever you want to be. This is a notebook that I actually got for my Scrawler box, so I've had that for about a year. And I was doing it for Inktober, so let's see. I only have a few drawings because I was kind of busy and lazy this year, so this is day 1. Oh, fuck. You might have seen these on my Instagram. I posted a few, but there's going to be a few in here that you haven't seen. So this was day 1, ring, followed by day 2, mindless. It's actually my favorite one I did. This is day 3, bait, day 4, freeze. This one is unfinished. This is day 5, and I was basing it off to, like, a Viennese, like, opera house or something. Then pattern, which honestly was It's a trash drawing, followed by snow. And I think I have one more in here. Let's see if we can try to find it. This was day 14. So yeah, I've definitely missed a few days. And this was overgrown. This is actually a sort of fan art for one of the monsters from my All I See module. Basically, you meet this person in the, well, it's not a person, it's a plant. You meet this plant in the greenhouse section in the Ashen Ruins dungeon. So All I See has basically 2 miniature dungeons that you deal with. And then there is another dungeon that occurs narrative-wise that brings you to the boss battle. And so basically you can choose to skip any of the dungeons like up to a point in the story, but then you have to like follow it literally. Turns out that I also had a Serve Safe book in here. I think this was actually the textbook that I got from class. So this was the one that I got that certification in earlier. And basically all it is just a big old textbook that lists every single thing you have to know to like, pass your Serve Safe exam. And it's all important stuff. It talks about a lot of really in-depth things about, let's see, cross-contamination and food, safety. And honestly, it's one of the best, it's one of the things that I'm happy to know about, because so many people, they do not know, anything about all these diseases. People wander into a buffet, and they just stick their grubby hands wherever they want, and I'm thinking, I don't know if you wash your hands. For all I know, you could have horrifying diseases. And people just go, la-di-da, I don't care that I'm potentially spreading, not cholera, but, salmonella or some other, food-borne illness into, the supply. And that is lazy, and it's rude. Wash your hands, use tongs, don't be a bad person. That is my opinion. Next, let's see, so I have another subject notebook. Imagine that, me with a notebook. Oh yes, I'll cut you. Don't put knives in the sink. Brought to you by the Committee of Learning How to Wash Your Fucking Dishes. And this looks like, oh yeah, so this definitely looks like it was a bunch of culinary notes again. Or at least, definitely some culinary notes. There's some few cute drawings here, but most of this is just real basic and class stuff. So, not the most interesting thing, and honestly, I don't really see any notes in here that would make it interesting to read. Unless you want to know about, egg cookery in a very technical high-def environment. This was... So if you remember my writing notebook that I showed you earlier in the video, this was a... Shit. Zelda Story NaNoWriMo, and this is actually my novel. So as you see, I wrote page 37, but I also have a short story here that I wrote. And this was written in a style of a newspaper article. This wouldn't even come into, this lore-wise would not come into play until, the second book after she's dealt with Mortimer. So this would actually be, the second ghost that she meets. That's a little... So basically the whole story is about a woman who decides, she's sick of her life, and she wants to go and start a B&B in the middle of fuck nowhere in Pennsylvania. But what she doesn't know is that the manor is haunted. And so she gets to deal with that. And so basically just imagine a super type A chick just, dealing with this paranormal in the middle of fucking nowhere while she's just but what about Shiplave? This is a coloring book that I've had since I was 6. I might have a hoarding problem. And following up is not too many. Following up is just a bunch of notebooks left over. And so I'll show those to you quickly and just go over them. Okay, I want to make sure. So I thought for a second that it wasn't. So this was from high school, and there's some good notes here. Honestly, I'll probably send this back, but that's just because I don't know if there is anything that I need that's important in here. I hate throwing away, my notebooks just because at one point in my life, they were important. But I also might just keep this so that I have, scrap paper. So this was my, give you a little information about me. This was my high school, what's it called? High school school schedule. I can't believe that I keep forgetting the damn words of the things I own. And basically I did like a lot of classes in high school. I figured it's a free ride. Gotta get it while the getting's good. And this actually, so for instance, like I said, important things, this was the map that we drew the first day for the kitchen. So this has information about everything in the kitchen, what all the names of the things are, where to find everything on the shelves and that type of stuff. So I've had this for a while, and it's chock full of bullshit. This one looks to be another blank notebook. I thought I might have to go out and buy one from Staples, but I had a shit ton right here. Followed by... Okay, this one at least has writing in it. I don't really know what... Let's see. Okay, so this was also from the time that I was in college. And there's just another little doodle that I made at last year. This is about menu planning. Oh yeah, nutrition, menu planning. So... There's a lot of sketches in the corner, followed by... Okay, so I must have been taking this during my nutrition phase. So this would be during quarter 2, and we would have been doing baking, but we would have also been taking a nutrition course where we talked about all the different nutrients and how they affect food and how they're important to us. Here's actually a list of shorthand that I was creating for my cookbooks. My cookbooks, but my notes. Basically, all of my notes are written in a really basic shorthand that I can read just fine, but it might be a little bit harder for other people. Actually, just to give you an example, this was an entire cookie recipe broken down into a really short segment. So it says, let's see, mix dry cream butter and sugar, beat eggs and vanilla, poco al poco plus flour mixture plus coconut. Okay. So that basically just gives me basic information of the ingredients and which way to do it. And then this symbol here is representing the oven. So right here is a list that I was going to use to explain different types of devices. So oven obviously is a box with a box inside of it with a handlebar. Range is a minimalistic interpretation as well as the salamander, the convection oven. So it all makes a bit of sense. And obviously this is just my personal mnemonic device. And it's not so much as to... And my basic reason for using shorthand was not so much to hide my notes, but as to have the information density that I needed to get them all that information into a short space. This looks to be I remember this. I was bored in class one day, so I tried to figure out how to make a water filtration device. Oh yeah. It's real basic, though. Then this was just more things about nutrition. And I think nutrition is interesting, but that's because I'm a freak. And because I went to school to learn about everything about food. So, obviously, I realize that my interest is part of my specialization. This was some notes I was actually taking for the canapes we had to do in a la carte. And if you guys want to see those canapes, if you guys want to see actually any of the things I did for culinary, I have a lot of them posted on my DeviantArt. So I'll put a link down below in the description, and I'll let you guys see it for what it's for. Got a few more notebooks here, and then I think we'll be done with the box. And I don't really remember what was in this. I think this was from... Yeah, so these notes seem to be from my actual WritersCafe one that I took the year before. So I took it the first time, I failed, you've already saw that. But then I actually... Oh, by the way, this is the original, and this is me redrawing a detail from it. But, anyway, as I was saying... But basically, the next year, I retook the test, I studied my tookus off, and... I passed, and now I am WritersCafe certified, which is a really great personal first step towards, getting certified in the industry. And it looks like it just blinks out near the end, and that's fine. And these seem to be just some sort of class notes to a class I no longer take or care about. followed by what seems to be some notes on cream soup. I love myself some cream soup. This is a column pad. And if I know correctly, this is the column pad. Oh, wait. Give me a second. Okay, no. This is one of my older column pads that I don't actually use anymore. I have a few of them. One of them in here actually has my honest to goodness, accounting records. The other ones are just filled from, different portions or different things. Okay, I remember actually this one. I was using this to learn about databases when I was first year of college. So all of these are just computer science notes that I was learning with one of those, learn with manga textbooks. They're basically just convoluted, anime drama stories, and they also teach you databases, or math, or physics, or something like that with them anime titties and whatnot. Anyway, guys, I'm going to show you aerial view of this. Give me a second to show just all the fucking trash that I have. This probably wasn't, the most super exciting stuff you've seen today, but, I want to just, show you a little bit of things about my life, and that way, and I feel like, we've opened a lot of doors into, some parts of my life that I would love to chat about. I might talk about, my genealogy experience sometime. I might talk about some of my stories from the culinary. I'd love to tell you about those. There's a lot of good ones I have. But basically, that was just a look into my excessive paper keeping. But besides that, just a nice way of going through some memories before I have to get some stuff up. I think next for, my packing, I'm going to have to, definitely condense my personal library. I love to read, I love books, but those cost a pretty penny to ship, so I'm going to definitely pick the essentials. I figured when I came up here, I wasn't going to bring anything it's temporary time, so I was bringing up just a little bit. And now that I'm going home, I kind of have to make that same decision. But I figure life is about, not being able to keep everything you get, and it'll be freeing, allow me to let go of a lot of stuff, and give me ideas on, how to get better stuff when I eventually have the time and space for it. So guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for, being with me in this part of my, moving journey. I'm going to talk to my, boss today, talk about transferring, figure out what I need to do to be stable when I get to Medford. But after that, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to be doing some vlogging, going to be, dealing with a lot of stuff. And I'm just glad that you guys are listening. So, it's going to be false bulls, 1, 2, 3. And I'm signing off. Peace. Oh. You walk out that door.